Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamer Dad channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So today we're going to be engaging the Elden Ring conversation of video game difficulty. There's a really huge aspect of this conversation, and I can't necessarily dive into every single particular detail so far just because of the nature of the conversation of how a game is engaged by every individual. But I will highlight that in terms of difficulty, we're looking at, say, the complaints and the concerns from people who have said, the difficulty of this game is not necessarily fair. You don't have difficulty settings, number one. Number two, even if you're in a situation where, you might win, enemy NPCs do some crazy stuff like cheat you and find a way to beat you at all costs. Now, that's one whole aspect of the conversation and maybe different variations of it. The second side of the conversation is in terms of accessibility. Now, I've seen some, player bases, like people who may have disabilities, actually say that Elden Ring does not provide a lot of accessible options for the game to be accessible to people who may have some of these challenges. And I think there is validity to those claims because if you look at, say, maybe other Ubisoft games, they make extensive accessibility options for every video game. And so they are setting a standard that if many other studios are not necessarily following, they're actually leaving out a player base for, that can engage in the game. And so that's just, one side of it. But I see it. And many people have come to terms like, I don't want to play this game. I can't play this game. So I'm just going to go ahead and, I'm going to forget it. There's no reason for me to, be hitting my head on the wall in this particular aspect of things. Now, if you kind of consider, all of this in place, we have to go back to the very first claims regarding difficulty. And in my opinion, I've also gone to, the place where I've said, okay, so if the game is actually that difficult, what is the solution to this? The core community will say, master the game, master the tactics, and get good. And there is validity to that. You still have to master those things. But here's something the developers have actually done. The developers have provided a means for people within the community to be able to engage in the game regardless of your skill level and still feel like you're making a lot of progress. And that is by investing time, not in necessarily directly mastering combat with the enemies, but in actually making your character very strong, like an RPG character could be, after investing time in getting items that are hard to get, in running into dangerous areas, in looting items, in crafting and farming runes that help your character to build, better weapons and better gear. And then when you return to that fight, the fight naturally becomes a cakewalk, and you feel that it becomes a cakewalk. And you do this without having to waste a lot of time and resources, which is actually, in my opinion, what I felt was, the way the game was. I thought, man, if I'm going to be running around the open world and getting these items, I feel like I'm dying to these bad guys or whatever, and I feel like I'm wasting time and resources. But eventually you learn a little bit of tact. The enemy NPCs are not going to necessarily chase you down too much. Once you're able to get away from them, you can pick up really important items. Yes, you might die, but the item is already in your, in your inventory. That item can be taken to, say, go improve your gear, improve your weapons, improve your magic. And then when you come back to that area where you were finding it very difficult, you're going to rip through everything with ease. And this is where many are not having that discussion about the game. I don't know if it's something of a, maybe some people feel like they're ashamed about doing this. Well, I don't feel any shame in doing that. In fact, I'm happy that that's actually an option. You see, I play another RPG looter shooter called The Division. This particular game allows for you to be able to do exactly that, because with underpowered gear, there are enemy bosses and enemy NPCs that you're not going to be able to take out. It is a shooter, but it is an RPG shooter. It's a game that many people don't necessarily play because, with weapons, people usually want instant gratification. They really want one bullet to melt somebody. But you really have to go back and spec your gear because the enemy NPCs are leveled very high in different activities. So to me, this Elden Ring experience is the culmination of what an RPG experience should actually be, where a very difficult game and a very difficult challenge does not stop you as the player from actually getting better and actually getting stronger. Now, here's the thing. Each region in the game, I think, in my opinion, has enemy NPC scaling. The scaling feels crazy, But I think the scaling feels crazy because many people are probably getting to those regions and are not necessarily powered to be able to take the enemies in those regions. And the game does not really tell you what the enemy NPC scaling is. The game is not nice enough to say, hey, enemies in here are all level 40 to level 60 enemies. It doesn't tell you that. So you might be level 40 and you might walk into that place and you might meet a level 40 NPC. You might take that NPC out and feel good about yourself. And then you may not know that you've encountered in the next thing a 50 NPC, and that NPC one taps you. And then you might say, you know, what's going on? So the idea is you move into an area and you check out and feel the bad guys and see what they're about. If they one tap you and they wipe out your entire health bar, regardless of how much, you know, HP you have, you get to realize and understand, okay, I'm not ready for this particular fight. Another thing too is your play style and your own, maybe say combat tactics may not be suitable for you approaching that enemy NPC. If you see an enemy NPC that's probably maybe, I don't know, 70, 80 feet tall, and you go in there, you want to play melee combat against that enemy, the enemy has a long reach. So you might not be able to dodge their attacks, even being on your horse or your steer, whatever you call it. So it might mean you might want to go around the world and gain a magic build of some kind, a build that will probably allow for you to be able to deal significant amounts of damage from distance. In my opinion, I found out that this actually works for a lot of people, you know, in some cases. And then regarding some activities like playing some of the mini area bosses, there are elements within the game that you can use. In fact, yesterday I went into this cave, which is the footage that you can see here, and I went to fight this, you know, duo mini boss combination or whatever they are. And in my, you know, encounters with them, what was really interesting was I think there was somebody who was there that, you know, I think it was an NPC or someone, I don't know who they were, and I basically spawned them. But that person was fighting the, you know, one of the bosses, and I even summoned two of my soldiers who are part of a summon ash combination or whatever it is, and they just did all the work. They basically melted the, you know, the first demi-human chief. It was so easy. I was laughing, going, oh my gosh, I cannot believe how, you know, streamlined this is, or let's just say the truth, how easy this is without much effort. I mean, sure, I have to say the time investment in this character though is not necessarily in quote without much effort. It took a while to be able to get, you know, in there and get the job done and get, you know, my character scaled up and get my, my ashes somewhat powerful and even have a little bit of help. But all of those things are available for every player in this game, so that way you don't feel like, you know, you're all by yourself in dealing with this particular difficulty of the game. So actually what the hardcore players said at the moment the game came out, that Elden Ring is actually one of the easier games that From Software has made, is objectively true. It's not subjectively true, it's objectively true. You can actually play this game much easier than, say, the other Souls games where these mechanics and these opportunities are not available. So if you want to play this game and make it an easy experience for yourself, it's very simple. All you have to do is invest the time, invest the, you know, effort, maybe, you know, dealing with and talking with people that will probably be happy to run with you, or finding co-op groups or whatever it is, and actually having them help you in different circumstances, and looking at different tips and looking at different, strategies that are available. A plethora of them are available on the internet, and they've been very helpful to me. I'm not, you know, against asking for help or seeking help. I will happily get every help I can get, and it will make my life easy. So I'm enjoying the experience while, you know, in some cases putting myself in a situation where I can face some of the difficulty, or maybe not. If my difficulty has to be running around the open world, finding some of the rarest items, then so be it. And I can use those rare items to actually improve my combat, to even get me better items. Then I think this is already a win-win deal for me. So if you already returned Elden Ring because you said, oh, it's so difficult and I don't think I can make it, then I think you may have had this preconception, or at least initial impression, that the game is impossible. That's not true. The game is not impossible. The game is actually very easy compared to the other Souls games, and there's a way to make it easy in some sense. Now, there are probably more end game or late game challenges that I'm going to face that will probably change my mind a little bit, But so far in my first 20 to 40 hours, I think that's where I am right now. I'm about 40 hours into the game. I can say that this is no challenge at all. In fact, I think they realize that the farming is going to take a lot of time if you want to go the approach that I'm going. So they make sure that when you farm and get items and use them in the right combination, they're strong enough to basically speed walk you through very challenging areas or challenging encounters. But I'll stop my video here. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. How are you approaching Elden Ring? Are you going with the wretch and you want to go beat the boss without any armor or whatever? Or are you going to gear up like crazy and traveling to some of the really weird places and doing all kinds of crazy activities and running through bosses just to pick up one item and die in order for you to build something overpowered, or whatever it is you're doing? Let me know in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching the video. Peace out.